Okay, let's talk about the names of the pitches. So we're going to scroll way back. So we just looked at a fairly complex piece of music, and now we're going to look at something really fairly simple. So we have 7 different pitch names. Now we'll get more into that later, what that means. But what you need to know now is we name the pitches after the first 7 letters of the alphabet. So we can start on A, B, C, D. That's the first 4. And just ignore these stems for now. I'll explain that later. These are called stems. But we're just focusing on the dots. E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Those are the 7 notes that we use. Okay? So, you might be thinking, there are a lot more than 7 notes possible, because this is not the lowest note you can imagine, right? And this is not the highest note you can imagine. We go way down and way higher and way lower, right? But the pitch names repeat. That's how it works. So if I keep going up, which I can do, so I can go off the staff. So this group of 5 lines, this 5-line thing, this is called the staff. This group of 5 lines. We call that the staff. So if I go off the staff, I can do this. I can play way above the staff, and I can play way below the staff, actually. So if I keep going up, this one is going to be called, this was G, remember? So this one is going to be called what? You're wrong. Whatever you said is probably wrong. This is going to be called A. So this note and this note are both called A, which is weird, right? That is weird, and we'll get more into why we do that in a minute. But right now, I just want to get us on the pitch names, okay? So how can you remember the pitch names? I remember when I learned to do this, I had a really hard time. When I was younger and I was trying to memorize the names of the notes. It was hard. So here's a couple things you can do that'll help you memorize them. Let's just go back. I'm just going to delete all of these. This is a symbol that means there's no note there. We call that a rest. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But here's a couple things you can remember. So let's go down even lower. Let's go all the way down to this A. This is an A. So let's add a bunch of notes. Oops. Okay. Now I have A through another A. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Now when we put notes, and we can keep going. Let's keep going, actually. So this was an A, so this has to be a B. And then we just keep going. C, D, E, F, G, A. So now we've got 3 A's on the screen here now. This is an A, this is an A, and this is an A. So how can we remember the names of the notes? There are a couple different tricks people have learned to do. Notice that when we add notes, let's look particularly when we're on the staff, right? What we do is we alternate between having a note on the line here and a note in between a line, right? So on the line, in between the line, on the line, in between the lines, on the line, in between the lines, right? So what sometimes people like to do is try to memorize a little mnemonic device for the lines and for the spaces. So let's do that. Let me show you. Oh yeah, I can just scroll over here. That's great. So if we just look at the spaces, and if you just remember the names of the notes on the spaces, then you can figure out the note in between. Because if we know this is an F and this is an A, and then you see that note, you can just use the alphabet and think, well, it's a little different in that case. Let's use this as an example. If this is an A and this is a C, and you see this note, you know that it's the note it's the letter that's in between A and C, right? So this must be a B because you can count A, B, C. So what's a good way to remember all the spaces? The easy way to do it is this. Actually, you don't even need to come up with a little mnemonic device because this spells a word. This is F, this is A, this is C, and this is E. So that spells the word face. So that is a handy way to remember the spaces. FACE are the spaces on the staff. So file that one away, face. You can do the same thing with remembering the lines. There's one more. This one doesn't spell anything good. E, G, B, D, and F. You can't really make a word out of that, but the different little phrases that I've heard people use are every good boy deserves fudge. Every good boy deserves fudge. Or every good boy does fine. I heard a weird one the other day. One of my students had something about an elephant. Like elephants get better. I'm just making this up as I go along. Elephants get better donuts faster. I don't know. You can make up your own. You're probably more likely to remember it if you make up your own. So those are two good ways of remembering the notes. Now, another thing I want you to do is think about the notes being in a circle. This is a handy kind of way to remember that the notes cycle around. Because the trick here is that you have to remember that the note that comes after G is not H. It's A, right? Because it ends at G and it circles around. So if we draw this circle, and then like a clock face kind of, and then we put all the letters in there, you can kind of see how as we go up, it goes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and it cycles around that way. That's a way to think about it so that you remember that we're always kind of turning this circle and moving up. So after G comes A. Okay? So you're going to want to remember these. I recommend memorizing this, FACE, remembering E, G, B, D, F, with every good boy deserves fudge or whatever you want to do, and just learning to count up the scale. Well, I remember when I was learning this, and I had a hard time really learning to read well at first, read notes well at first. And one of the things I did is, for some reason, I memorized E. So E is right here, so this is an E. So I just knew like the bottom line was E. No matter what, the bottom line was E. So if I wanted to find out what this note was, all I had to do is go down to an E and then go F, G, A, B, C. That's a C. If I wanted to find out that note, I went all the way down to an E and went F, G, A, B, C, D, E. That's another E. That's a tedious way to do it, but eventually it clicked, so I memorized everything. But it's going to take time to learn how to read this stuff. Don't expect to read fast. That's not a goal. That's not something you need to be able to do for music theory. But we do have to know where these notes are. So that's how they work. Okay, up next, let's talk about why we cycle those notes around. Why A comes after G, right? Why don't we just count up to H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P? There's a pretty good reason, and it has to do with something called octaves. So let's talk, and pitch classes. So let's talk about that in the next video.